Oh.
Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Triple P, TRIPPLE and I am your astrology pimp, your astrology prophet, and your astrology priest. And today's 7 Series Astrology Prophetics video topic will be who and why you need game. And the reason I'm creating this video is because I want all of my viewers, male viewers, whether they be veterans in the game or newcomers to the game, I want all individuals to understand that polygamy gives no impunity. Again, hypergamy gives no impunity. And for those of us who might not be aware of the word impurity, it just simply means to be exempt from punishment. You know, for example, when somebody goes to jail and they maybe were sentenced to a lifetime sentence, and then they could get pardoned from the state, or president, or someone of a high authority figure could allow those guys to spend a lesser term. Let's say instead of spending 3 lifetimes, maybe they already spent 40 years in jail or 30 years in jail, then they would be considered, they could get impunity. So that is what impunity is, being exempt from punishment. And for those of us by now, like I said, I'm going to make these videos in progressions in reference to the game. And what I did was I created a foundational base for this channel, knowing who you are. And I highly recommend that all guys, first and foremost, know who they are, be it male or female, but specifically, I'm talking about the dating game in reference to men in these further upcoming videos. However, again, like I said, the best thing would be to know who you are first and foremost before you go and pursue women, because that way you will have a solid foundation of who you are, knowing what you are and who you are as well. But back to the topic. Again, hypergamy does not give impunity. No man is exempt from hypergamy. No, not one. Not even God was exempt from hypergamy. And for those of you guys, go ahead and watch. There's a video that I recently created titled I Am the Serpent. And I go into detail in reference to the Adam and Eve story. One interpretation of the story. Again, there's many interpretations of the Adam and Eve story. However, I did go into some details in reference to the story being interpreted as a story about hypergamy. So go ahead and check out that video, I Am the Serpent. That video goes into great detail talking about hypergamy as well. So again, no one is exempt from hypergamy, not even God, because Eve, for example, was in the Garden of Eden. She was in the garden, and she had everything. She had all the land and everything. She had, again, I am sure she was physically a 10 and a half with the box. She had Adam, Adam had a 16 pack, one of the most attractive males out of the box. She had everything. However, she gave it all up for something that she felt was missing: knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that is what she gave it up for. She didn't really give anything up, but that is what she gave it up for: knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that is what I am talking about here today. Not even God is exempt from hypergamy. Hypergamy is a natural woman inclination to always seek the better, the bigger, the better alpha male. Because this hypergamy was something that was created not because of a woman's desire to pretty much do this. This was something that came about through evolution. From the evolution process, allowed women throughout the ages to seek the man for the best suitable man for survival purposes only. So that is why hypergamy is something that will never go away, because all women seek survive to survive. In fact, everyone seeks to survive, but we all know by now women are, in most cases, the less weaker vessel physically, and sometimes they are taken advantage of, and they are being used and abused and so forth. So the only thing that they have that would keep their survival and keep them safe is what would solidify their survival is to actually utilize the natural hypergamy skills and gifts that they were given by nature. So it's not that these women are bad or anything of that sort. It's just that hypergamy is mandatory to weed out the weakest genes. Because if women did not have a process to vet men and kind of, like I said, weed them out, then any man would be able to just impregnate them, and then the man would be a weaker man who would not be stable financially, mentally, emotionally to take care of the not only the woman but the offspring. So women do what they do not necessarily because of themselves in all the time. It is usually have something to do with the offspring. What if I get pregnant for this guy? How is my offspring is going to survive? How am I going to be able to take care of not only myself, but to actually take care of these children as well? So women are not hypergamous by nature, uh, just because they are hypergamous, because they have the bigger picture in mind, again, which has to do with the child. But again, no one is exempt from hypergamy. No, not one. I do not care what you think, how you think, whatever the case may be, you are not exempt. Again, no, not one is exempt from hypergamy. Not even God was exempt from hypergamy, because, like I said, in the Garden of Eden, Eve decided to actually uh, choose the knowledge and wisdom and understanding that she felt that was missing. So therefore, again, no matter what you have, no matter how you look, you are also subject to losing to hypergamy. Now, however, there are some men, I would say, some men were naturally, charismatic, and they have charisma and they have sex appeal and different things of that sort, but that does not make them exempt also. That is why, again, the title of this video is Who and Why You Need Game. Who needs game? Everyone. Every male that exists needs game. And again, just for the record, for those who might be hearing the word game for the first time or not knowing what game is not playing games. Games is just simply understanding the nature of the female, and actually having the know-how to address the hypergamy and how to satisfy the hypergamy as well. And that is all game is, basically knowing when something arises, when there's maybe the woman gives you some type of shit test or something of that sort, you would know what to do and you would know what not to do. So that is all game is, pretty much having a strategy to combat the inevitable loss due to hypergamy, so that you could stay in the game long as possible, and you could actually, even to the point where you may build some attachment, and only until the attachment is built, then you maybe could stand somewhat of a chance for staying there longer than others. However, the attachment also can be broken. The attachment is not the all and be all, because you still have to actually practice game. You still have to display being a high value man. You still have to be showing pre-selection. You still have to pass shit tests every now and then. You still are going to have to actually be the man that she actually satisfies her hypergamy. And until that hypergamy is no longer satisfied, you will no longer be the choice of her hypergamy being satisfied. So again, some men were naturally born gifted in some areas, but there's only a select few of men that actually has everything. You know what I'm saying? Some men may be very attractive physically, but they're dumb as rocks. There may be some men that are dumb as rocks. They may be dumb as rocks, but they may be physically attractive, vice versa. There are some men that have money, extremely money, but are not charismatic. There might be some men that are broke but are charismatic. There are some men, again, it's just so much different aspects to successfully satisfying hypergamy. And for the record, hypergamy is actually a feeling. And that is what makes hypergamy so difficult to satisfy, because women are emotional and feeling creatures. So if women are emotional and feeling creatures by nature, and they rely on this thing called hypergamy, that means that your chances of losing this woman is up in the air almost always, because the woman feelings always changes always. That is why when you see guys talk about, and I'm going to create some videos and other topics, I'm going to go deeper and deeper as time goes on, but when you see guys talk about choosing signals and choosing the woman, choosing you and so forth, what guys fail to understand is women have to choose you every day. Every time they see you, they have to continuously choose you. Every week, every month, every day, every year, the longer you stay in the relationship, the woman is going to have to constantly be choosing. So with that being said, the choosing process does not start in only when she meets you, when she chooses you. She has to choose you as time go on continuously, and your behavior has to meet her satisfaction to satisfy her hypergamy all the time. So the choosing process never actually stops. Therefore, the man has to continuously have his game on point all the time. And that is where I went wrong at some point in my life. And this will happen to many guys, and that's why most dating coaches, they're here to not only teach you, but to actually tell you where they went wrong and so forth and so on. So, for example, myself, like I said, I did not really get into game in the very beginning because of having a lack of attracting women. I was fortunate in that aspect. However, one of the reasons I did attract the women that I did attract was because I did have a don't care attitude. I did only see those women as objects. I did not really care that much psychologically and emotionally for them, and that was actually was satisfying a lot of these women hypergamy. I know it sounds harsh and it sounds cruel, but it is the truth. The more you care, the more you lose. The more you don't care, the more you win. So, however, what happened to me was I eventually, again, after having multiple women and so forth, I came across a female that was feminine, if I may say feminine, and she was submissive, and she did all of these things for me, and the list goes on. She cooked, she cleaned, and she did the 9 yards. And the reason it lasted for a very long time. I was in top, however, and the reason I did last so long is because when I came into the relationship, I felt that she was somewhat, if I would not really want to use the term, beneath me, but however, I felt that I could do better. And so because of having that attitude, thinking that I could do better, that kind of was always admitted, and she felt that feeling from me to some degree. So it was always a challenge for her to actually sustain me and sustain the relationship. But as soon as a woman feels that she has you and there is no more challenge, and there is certainty, a certainty is being met, her polygamy will not be satisfied. So that is one big mistake what I made. After a period of time, I decided, I said, hey, you know what, this girl today deserves a lot better. And this went on for years. I'm talking about years. I'm talking about this girl did everything under the sun for me. I can't even tell you guys what type of services this girl did for me. However, the situation changed when I actually changed my attitude also as well, when I came to a point where I felt like there was some type of equal footing. So when I started to feel like, okay, this girl somewhat deserves better, or maybe I should kind of lighten up or whatever, that is when I actually started to actually lose some ground, because men don't understand women want you to be the prize. And again, like I said, most men are not born with this natural inclination to believe or see themselves as the prize, unless they were fortunate enough to be around strong masculine men from a child. If a young man does not, he was not born around in a household where he had a father or something of that sort, and he does not see an example of a masculine male, it is most likely that he is going to adopt the traits from his mother. And so, with that being said, if you are brought up in a household by a mother, by a woman, you definitely need game more than anybody else, because what is going to happen is you're going to adopt a lot of the mother's feminine traits and the mother feminine attitudes, and you're going to be a lot more sensitive and so forth and so on. And I noticed for a fact, uh, and so you have some men, again, so growing up in a home where there's only a mother and you don't have any maybe other masculine role models, any uncles, any cousins in the household, and there's only just femininity. You maybe grow up with a few sisters, you could kind of be somewhat mass feminine, emasculated by these women, because these women, they tend to dominate you, and you get used to women being in charge and all of that stuff, and you tend to be a little bit more soft-hearted, if I may say, versus as a young man who grew up in a house with a strong, firm father. He watched his father behave in a certain way, a masculine way, with his mother, and he tend to maybe have an example. For example, I would say me, uh, I grew up. My father was, I would consider, to be an alpha male. He was extremely recognized. He was a highly recognized in the community, his social circles of his peers, and he was always fly to the sky. He always had money. He had a good job. He was a womanizer. He had women, from here to Japan. And I think that's where I got some of the stuff from too. But the moral of the story is he was humorous, he was charismatic. I mean, he had everything. You know what I'm saying? He did not have one woman, he had multiple women, and that was the way that he operated. So growing up with a father like that gave me an opportunity to see what a masculine male looked like. However, I too uh, was somewhat mainly brought up by my mother. However, that made me to have somewhat also more sensitive sides towards women, and taking up traits from your mom telling you, don't be this way, don't be a womanizer, don't do this, don't do that, and just women tend to want their sons to be nice men, yeah, nice respectable young men as well. But if you don't have a balance where there was a father and a mother, and there's only a mother, you would definitely need game more than anyone else. Because again, like I was saying, despite the fact having my dad as a role model and seeing an example of what I would consider an alpha male, I don't think I've ever seen my dad one day, unless he was like doing work in the yard or something of the sort. He was always, like I said, fly to the sky. He had an extremely reputable job, and he had always had money. When he went out in the bars or clubs or wherever he went, he was always one of the guys who was most liked amongst his peers and so forth. He was extremely charismatic and funny, and women were always. He was always magnetic, had a magnetic personality. And again, the tree doesn't fall, or sorry, the fruit doesn't fall too far from the tree, or the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, however it goes. But anyhow, the moral of the story is, I saw that, and despite the fact him being a womanizer and having women and all that, I did not hate him for it. In fact, I somewhat admired the fact that he had the capabilities to do that as well. But anyhow, depending on what environment you were brought up in, that also will affect your ability to actually how masculine you will be or how feminine you will be based on who brought you up. But again, the moral of the story is no one is exempt from hypergamy. Now, again, like I was saying, there may be some men who naturally may have a masculine frame or very strong masculine identity naturally right out the box. But if you really look at the history of those guys, they actually had, most of those guys had some male father figure, some uncle, someone told them, someone put something in them. They might say to you, oh, I don't really do game, I don't believe in game, or whatever the case may be. Because I've heard many guys, at least I've heard a few guys who actually have it naturally per se. They don't believe, they don't believe in game or anything of that sort. But what they fail to realize is their characteristic itself is the embodiment of game. They might not actually practice it per se, or they might not be aware of it, but they also have all of the characteristics of being a gamer, if I may say. So, for example, like I was saying, depending on the household that you were born in, when I was again having multiple women, I mean, I was catching, I was a fisherman, catch and release. I didn't care one bit whether they stayed or they go. And that was very attractive. And that what gave me the ability to pull the women that I wanted, because women could feel when they are dealing with a man who has options. And that is why you see in the game, it's almost better to have multiple women more than less, because the less you have, it's almost the less attractive you will be. And again, I'm not this channel is this what I'm talking about is for the guys who are trying to develop game. I'm not here to talk about guys who want to be, purple pills, or guys who wants to be able to, don't want more than one woman, or guys who don't want to learn game. This channel is not for you. If you this information is not for you. If you want to go and get into some monogamous simp type trick type relationship, go and watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or something of that sort. This information is not for you. This is the information for the guys who have been tired of being lied to, who is tired of being rejected, who is tired of actually being disappointed by women, who is being tired of losing their women to more masculine men. This is about the guys who may not have all of the attributes. They might not be the tallest, they might not be the richest, they might not be the most attractive guy. This information, who this information is for. This information is not for guys who is looking for some just, in fact, you could use the information too, but this information is game. And most individuals who are blue pill, they do not believe in game. They do not accept game to be true. However, that is why they are in the position that they are in. So back to what I was saying. So, for example, I know, again, so the environment, I know a guy personally, he had uh, his mom left him at a very young age, and because of that, he grew some type of animosity towards women. I'm not saying it's healthy that he did this, but I'm saying I'm trying to give you guys an understanding how your success with women is going to be based on how you view women. That is why I opened up the video. One of the videos, my first very video on the dating series, I spoke about how to attract women. I talked about the pills, the red pill and the blue pill and the purple pill and the black pill. So what type of pill do you consider yourself? That will be the type of angle you would approach women. And whatever angle you approach women is going to determine how successful you are with women. And that's why I said again, when I was in the game, full, 10 toes down, strong, 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 I was at my best when I did not give a fuck. Trust me on that. You will be your best if you don't give a fuck. And however, the only way to not give a fuck is to be on your purpose, to have game, and to have more than one option. Because women don't want men who don't have any options. That is why when some men cheat on women, they tend to lose their mind, they get mad, they cry, they whine and all that. But what do? They stick around. They don't usually leave. They stick around because they know you have the ability to actually get another woman. And especially if the woman is more attractive than her, more successful than her, it is most likely that she will be hurt, she will be sad and all that. But she will stick around in most cases. So that is what I'm saying. That is why in the game they say it's almost the standard. I wouldn't say a standard, but the standard is to have at least 4 women. Again, this topic is not for the weak-hearted. It's not for the faint. This is game. This game that I'm spitting right now is like earthquake, hurricane, lightning and thunder, brimstone and fire. This game is not for the simps, the tricks, and the tricks. You know what I'm saying? This is for the marks, the players, the P's, and so forth, and the gigolos, and so forth and so forth. This information is for guys who want to either upgrade or actually enhance the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that they already have. This game is like lava that I spit. So, but anyhow, back to what I was saying. When I was at my most less caring attitude is when I was the most successful with women. When I actually did not give a fuck. That is when I actually was attracting the most women. When I went to the clubs or whatever, and I had an attitude, because the women knew that they could see that I had other women, or they could see that I was accustomed to women. They could see that I was accustomed to a particular quality. They know that there was not any face being shown in me. Again, my success with women was when I had more of an abundance mindset. And when I actually was at my worst is when I put the game down because I thought that I had arrived and I did not understand that hypergamy was an ongoing thing. I thought that because the woman was attached, I thought that because she liked me, I thought that because I displayed certain characteristics and so forth and so on, I thought this was an everlasting type of thing. However, my challenges began when I actually, again, tried to go back into the dating world, trying to actually adapt to more like a simp type of mentality or a blue pill mentality. And I put the game down thinking that, I need to be fair and I believe women want this, they want that. If I get a good enough job and if I dress a certain way and all of that and all of this, that's what I thought would be the game of all games. But I was incorrect. And that's why I'm here to teach you guys, to let you guys know game is not something that you do. Game is something that you have to become. Game has to become a part of you. That is why they say in the game, pimping is not on you. Pimping has to be in you. So back to what I was saying again, I know this guy, his mom actually rejected him at a very young age, and that gave him somewhat of a bitterness towards women. And believe it or not, because of he